Isn't it lovely when you drop down into a level and before your feet even touch the floor, you hear an alarm going off in the distance? Ah, good old error alarms. Nothing like spicing up a level by making it so that one of your greatest strengths, taking things nice, slow, and steady and analyzing everything around you, goes right out the window. But fear not, fellow prisoner, that's why another one of your strengths is learning from your mistakes, or even better, other people's mistakes, and planning ahead before the sleeper dung hits the fan. Now, let's just hope that with all that knowledge you've gained, you also have the skills needed to properly utilize it. Hello everyone, Professor Scaler here, and welcome to the final level guide for Alternate Rundown 3. Just like always, we're starting off with your recommended loadout, but this time around, I actually have two specific loadouts to recommend to you and your team that you can choose from, depending on sort of what playstyle you have. The first loadout is catered more towards the aggressive players out there who want to play high risk but also high rewards. And that would be a bio tracker, a mine deployer, a C-foam launcher, and then something like a burst sentry. This loadout really relies on you getting doors open for the upcoming alarms. That way, when you actually have to deal with those alarms, you can shut the door, mine it, and C-foam it, do the full team scan, and then the C-foam launcher person can keep re-C-foaming the door over and over again while your teammates are working on all the sets of scans. And then once you finish all the scans, you just stop C-foaming the door, assuming you have the tool refill to last that long, which you can, since this level gives you a lot of tool refill in it. And then you just let the door break open, the mine kills most, if not all, the enemies from the alarm, and you just go about your business. It saves you a lot of ammunition and a lot of HP for later moments in the level. However, it does rely on you actually getting these doors open before the error alarm enemies break them down. It also has other benefits though, as you have a mine deployer to deal with the blood doors in the level, and you have a C-foam launcher that you can use to deal with the birther at the midway point, as well as the charger scouts and giant chargers and whatnot in the stealth portion of the area. That way you have a little bit of an easier time making your way through there. Only real downside, I suppose, is you only have a single sentry, so if you and your teammates aren't really that good at shooting large groups of enemies, it's gonna suck that you don't have two sentries to provide you with that extra firepower. But that's why we have the other loadout, the more casual one, which is nowhere near as high risk or high reward, but it definitely gets the job done just as well. And that would be a bio tracker, a mine deployer, and then two sentries, either burst sentries or sniper sentries. Personally, I prefer the burst, but you could do one burst and one sniper if you feel like it. This loadout is basically your way of saying, we don't know if we're going to get the doors open in time for the upcoming alarms, but even if they get broken down, it's no big deal. If we do preserve them, then we can still shut them and mine them and have two sentries on the inside of the room with us, so once the mine explodes and the door's gone, you have sentries to give you some extra firepower. That, or if the doors do get broken open in advance, no big deal, you just simply don't use the mines at all, you just place both of your sentries facing towards the direction they come from, and then the sentries will thin the herd a little bit, and then you and your teammates just have to take care of the last few enemies that are still there. This loadout is definitely a lot safer for the level. The only downside though is you do not have a C-foam launcher, so you cannot C-foam the birther or the charger scouts or really any other moment where you would like to use C-foam, and even if you do preserve the doors and place a mine on them for the alarm when you get around to it, not nearly as many enemies will pile up on the door because you have no C-foam launcher, so you cannot reinforce it, so the mines aren't quite as effective, although still useful, and you're going to have to do a lot more shooting. So really it's just up to you and your team which loadout you'd like to take. Personally, I like taking the high risk, high reward one, as I know I can get most of the doors open before the error enemies break them down, but if you don't want to take that risk, take the second loadout and you should be perfectly fine. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to deliver the HSU neonate all the way to the end frame, which will be located inside zone 397. And you and your teammates are going to be starting off inside zone 388, which thankfully, this isn't quite as far away as you may initially think. Upon dropping down into level, you're going to hear an error alarm initiate, and this error alarm will persist until you plug that neonate into the end frame. As for the error, it's going to be spawning in 4 regular strikers or shooters roughly every 30 seconds, and every time a wave spawns in, there's a chance that a giant striker will be added into the mix. Initially, I thought that the giant striker spawned in every 2, 3, or maybe 4 waves, but after doing a little bit of testing, I've determined that it is completely random, as sometimes I could go 5, 6, or even 7 waves without a single giant striker showing up, and other times I go 4 or 5 waves in a row where I get a giant striker every single time. So pray to RNGesus that you don't get giant strikers too terribly often. But as soon as your feet hit the floor and you're able to run, I recommend that two of you just immediately book into the room in front of you and head to the northwestern corner. We're going to be able to find a door that you're going to want to open. That way we can preserve it for an upcoming alarm. As for the other two people, they kind of grab the neonate and start carrying it with them, or they could look around for resources, or deal with some of the enemies that are sleeping in the rooms, or maybe even the air alarm enemies themselves, or whatever you think is best. Ultimately, you just want to make your way throughout the zone, clear out the sleeping enemies, and don't get overwhelmed by the air alarm enemies. Look for resources as there are plenty of them inside this zone. And then if you want, you can take that neonate all the way over to the northeastern side of the zone, where you'll find a security door to zone 391. This is ultimately the direction we have to head to get to zone 397, but the security door here is locked and requires a color keycard to open it up, and that keycard will always be located either in zone 389 or zone 390, which are the other two zones we have access to through the zone we're currently in. But because it can always be in one of those two random zones, we first want to hop on the terminal in the first room of zone 388 and use it to query that keycard. That way we know which one of the two zones we're heading into. Once we have that information and we take care of everything else in the zone that we want to, we can head into the northwestern room, which has both of those alarm doors, then wait for an air alarm wave to spawn in, and as soon as they do, rush out to meet them, kill them, and then fall back into the room and very quickly set up our defenses and activate the alarm door. As for our defenses, as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one possible location enemies can spawn from, and even if the two northeastern doors are left open, 99% of the enemies will go through this door right here. So if we could preserve this, we can shut it, mine it, and C-foam it if we brought a C-foam launcher, or if we're rocking a mine deploying two sentries, just simply shut it, mine it, and have both of our sentries in the room with us facing towards that door. Then we can activate the alarm and get to work on the scans. C-foam launcher person, if you do exist, you can re-C-foam the door once just to buy your teammates a little bit more time if you want to. And once you finish all the scans, go over, pick up the sentries, and deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive, and then head into whichever one of the two zones you're going into. When it comes to zone 389 and 390, they are quite similar to each other. They are covered in pitch black darkness. There will be a little bit of infectious fog in them. There will be things like strikers and shooters, as well as giant strikers in them, a few resources to collect, but more importantly, there will be that colored keycard that you need. So you can either all go together as a team and deal with the error enemies and the sleeping enemies as you make your way through looking for the keycard, or you could split up a bit, but once you have collected that colored keycard, you could just leave the zone, go back to zone 388, and head to the far eastern side to that security door to zone 391. Plug the colored keycard in, which will give you access to the blood door portion. Just place 1 or 2 mines onto the blood door, open it up and fall back a bit, and the mines will deal with most of the enemies for you. You just simply kill the few that did survive, namely the hybrids, as well as any of the enemies that were sleeping inside that first room naturally that just now woke up. And once everything is dead, you and your team can actually head into zone 391 itself. When you head into zone 391, you're once again going to split up into 2 teams of 2. One team of 2 is going to have the neonate, so one of you is carrying it, while the other person is just simply protecting you as you make your way slowly to the far eastern side of the zone. The other 2 people, you are just going to blitzkrieg straight east and open up every single door along the way. There should be a total of 3 of them between you and that far eastern room. And the reason you want to do this is because you need to make sure all 3 of these doors are preserved. Or at least, you don't need to, but you ideally want to, as all 3 of them can be useful in not just one upcoming alarm, but actually 2 of them. So if you can get all 3 of them open, it'll make them quite a bit easier. There will be a few enemies naturally sleeping throughout this zone, as well as a lot more resources for you to collect, and even some fog repellers, which I highly recommend you pick up. But I would say prioritize getting the doors open, then deal with all the enemies, then deal with the air alarm enemies, and then take a little bit of time to look around and grab resources and the fog repellers. Once you have everything from inside the zone you want to grab and you're ready to move on, you make your way to the far eastern side where you'll be able to find a security door to zone 396. This security door though is going to have a class 6 alarm tied to it, so we do need to set up some defenses first. Which, as you can see with the map overlay, there is once again only 1 spawn location for these enemies and 2 doors they can potentially go through. But as we can see, this security door down over here, which we have to go through later, has a dark red color strip, which means that this door does have an alarm tied to it. And these 2 doors over here can be used for this alarm and that one later on. So what I recommend you do is leave the door further away from you open, that way you can use it for that upcoming alarm, and then the door that's tied directly to your room, if you were able to preserve it, shut that door, mine it, and C-foam it, or if you don't have C-foam, just place both of your sentries facing towards it inside your room, and this will help protect you against the alarm enemies while you're working on the scans. If you brought a C-foam launcher, try to keep that door shut for as long as you possibly can while your teammates focus on the scans. But once all the scans are dealt with, deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive, pack up your sentries, and then you can head into zone 396. And inside zone 396, there will be a few more sleeping enemies here and there, but more importantly, there's going to be a lot of infectious fog. The first room is completely clear, but every room afterwards is mostly, if not completely covered. So I would recommend that if you haven't already, grab some fogger power stacks, quickly look throughout the previous zone and grab them. That way at least 2 people have stacks on them so you can safely get through this zone. Once you're ready though, you could go down a staircase, just throw 1 or 2 fog repellers in front of you. You want to make your way to the far eastern side of that second room where you find a door, open it up and all head through, and then shut the door behind you and mine it if you would like. And then you just have to make your way all the way to the southern end of the room you're now in. Once you get down there, you'll find a security door to zone 397, which is just going to have a full team scan tied to it. So get over there, make sure you have the neonate with you, do the full team scan, and once it's finished, open up the door and head into zone 397 itself. When you go in, you'll be able to go up a staircase which will get you out of the infectious fog, and in the middle of the room, you'll be able to find the in-frame. So whoever has the neonate with them, just walk over to it and plug it in immediately, while the other 3 people either quickly look around for resources, or stay near the top of that staircase and defend against any of the air alarm enemies that are still alive and coming after you. Shortly after you plug the neonate into the in-frame, it is going to deactivate the air alarm, so you don't have to worry about more of those enemies coming in. However, it is going to spawn in a birther who will automatically wake up and will be about 2 rooms away from you. Thankfully though, she will not rush you down if you have multiple people staying near the top of that staircase. So deal with all of the air alarm enemies that are still left alive, and once you know the only thing left is a birther, I recommend you start spraying C-foam all over that staircase. That way when she tries to come up it, she'll get frozen in place and you and your teammates can quickly rush her down. Or if you don't have a C-foam launcher whatsoever, then all you're going to do is back up into the room a little bit after you make sure you all have enough HP and ammunition to actually deal with her, and then just hide behind something, as her birthing attack can only work when she has direct line of sight of you. And once she gets into the room, maybe throw a fog repeller over a counter in her general area, so when you do rush her and she tries to fog up the area, she's unsuccessful, and then just deal with a birther like you typically would. Have 2 or 3 people focus purely on shooting the tumors to try to kill her as fast as you can, while one person who has a weapon with a large magazine, like a machine gun or a submachine gun or anything like that, just focuses on all the babies she spawns in. That way you can kill most, if not all of them, before they even have the chance to run around and attack you. And hopefully by the time you're dealing with all the babies, your teammates are done actually shooting her and killing her. If not, no big deal, she'll run around a bit. Just chase her down and just keep shooting at her tumors or waiting for her to stop in place, and just kill her before she gets the chance to birth again. Once she is dead, you can now take things a little bit slow and easy, as there's nothing that's going to be immediately coming after you. So now you can backtrack through all the zones you've already been through and grab any of the resources you ended up missing. So get everything inside zone 397. In here there's also a disinfect station so you can fully disinfect your entire team. There's also a fog turbine, so you can pick that up so you can more safely go back through the previous zone. So grab everything from 397, and then backtrack into 396, look around, grab all the resources in there, then go back into zone 391, make sure you keep the fog turbine with you as you will need it later in the level. And if your team still needs a few more resources, you can still even backtrack into zone 388, as well as 389 or 390, depending on which one of the 2 you opened. Once you've gone through all of the zones and you've collected every single resource pack that you need or want to grab, and you're all holding on to some, you can then head back to the security door that's halfway through inside zone 391 to the southern end of it, specifically the one that takes you to zone 392. Now, this security door is going to have an alarm tied to it, specifically a class 5 alarm. So before we can open it up and progress further into the level, we are going to need to set up our defenses, which, as you can see with the map overlay, there are 2 different locations enemies can spawn from. If enemies come from the east, they have to go through these 2 doors to get to us. But if you've been following this guide to the T, then this door right here should already be broken down, so we cannot utilize it, but this door should be preserved, so we can shut that door, mine it, and C-foam it if we brought a C-foam launcher. If enemies come from the west though, they have to go through the open security door and then this door right here, so just simply shut this door, mine it, and then C-foam it if you have a C-foam launcher. If you don't have a C-foam launcher, you just simply have 2 sentries. It's basically the same thing, shut the doors and mine them, and then have 1 sentry facing towards each of the doors, and that's really all you need to do for your defenses. Once you and your team are ready to go, head up to the security door, activate the alarm, and get to work on the scans. Scans can be a bit trolly in this room by going all over the place, so it might take you a little while to finish this alarm, but you should have more than enough resources to deal with that anyway. And once you finish all the scans, deal with all the enemies, pack up your sentries, and then you can open up the security door and head into zone 392. When it comes to zone 392, you are going to want to be extremely cautious because this version of R3D1 has bumped the difficulty up quite a bit compared to the original, or at least it has when it comes to this zone in particular. Inside zone 392, there are going to be 2 different rooms, and in these 2 different rooms, you can expect to see a total of 2 charger scouts, a fair amount of regular chargers, giant chargers, hybrids, and there will also be a good portion of infectious fog. So yeah, you do not want to wake up all this stuff, because even though the level has provided you with a ton of ammunition, you don't want to spend a lot of it blasting your way through this zone unless if you know you can get away with it and still have enough for the rest of the level, or if you just want to go crazy anyway. Ideally, I like to sneak my way through this zone, but I also understand that sometimes that isn't really the easiest thing to do, especially if both of your Charger Scouts are in the same room. So if you want to, you could go guns blazing and just pull the entirety of the first room and fight them outside in a better location. Just make sure you don't wake up a Charger Scout if you do so, or if you want, you can try to sneak your way through. Just keep in mind that if you are trying to sneak your way through and you wake up a Charger Scout or a ton of enemies, you're going to have a very big gunfight on your hands, and you can very quickly go down because of the large amount of giant chargers. Those things get on top of your team, you are basically done for. So be very cautious as you go through here. Use the fog turbine or fog repellers to safely get through the infectious fog portions, and just make your way all the way to the far southern side of the zone. When you get there, you'll find a security door to zone 393, which is just going to have a full team scan tied to it. When you open up that security door though, head into zone 393. There will never be any enemies sleeping inside of here, just a few more resources for you to collect, as well as a disinfect station in the second room that you can use to disinfect if you and your team have any across you. And then as you make your way through zone 393 and you get to the far southern side of it, you'll find a security door to zone 394. Now this security door is going to have a class 6 alarm tied to it, so before we activate it, we are going to want to set up a few more defenses. As you can see, there's only one possible spawn location for enemies, which is outside in the zone with the chargers and giant chargers and whatnot, but from my experience, they will never ever scream out there, so you don't have to worry about those enemies getting pulled in. And there's only one entrance into your room, this door right here. So shut this door, mine it and seafoam it, and then you can have one or both of your sentries facing directly towards it on the inside of your room. Now, something you may notice with that icon is that that's not the typical icon I use for my map overlays. It's just shooters, which is actually accurate because for some weird reason, this alarm will only ever spawn in regular shooters and very rarely a giant striker or two. I don't know why this alarm is like this. I feel like this is an alarm that would have been suited for alternate R1B2, as that level only has shooters inside of it, but hey, I don't know what goes on at 10 Chambers HQ. They just decide to make this a shooter-only alarm. So once you are ready, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans. If you want to seafoam launch a person, just keep seafoaming that door over and over again. And once you finish every single one of the sets of scans, deal with the enemies, pack up your sentries, and then resupply with resources. And make sure you do so before you open up that security door, because once you open up the security door to zone 394, there is no going back. Inside of there is going to be a big open room with a single enemy inside of it. Specifically a queen birther right smack dab in the middle, and shortly after that door opens up, she will automatically wake up. Now, if you have never dealt with a queen birther before or even seen one, it's not too much different compared to that of a regular birther. It's just a fair amount bigger, it has a whole lot more HP, and it spawns in a whole lot more baby strikers when it does its birthing attack. But the way you deal with it is pretty much the same as how you deal with a regular birther. When you open up that door and it fully opens up, or as it's opening up I guess I should say, throw a fog repeller or two into the room to counter her fog attack, and then as soon as you can, run in through the door, and you're going to have 2 or 3 people on your team focus purely on shooting her tumors while she's doing the birthing attack, as she's not going to move around, while 1 or 2 other people on your team focus purely on the babies. She'll spawn them in all in the same spot, so as soon as you see that first one appear, just open fire and just mag dump into that area with both of your guns, and the other people just focus on her. If the people focusing on her are doing a really good job of it and they have high damage weapons like choke mod or sniper or burst cannon or something like that, you might be able to kill her before she even finishes birthing and starts running around. If not, then don't panic. Just make sure that you deal with all the baby strikers, as they are the only things that can actively attack you, and then just rush her down. Keep on chasing her. Eventually she'll stop in place to either scream at you or fog up the area more or try to do another birthing attack. And if she goes for another birthing attack, it's the same thing. 1 or 2 people focus on the babies, the other people focus on the tumors, and you just keep on rinse and repeating until she is dead. And once she's gone, you are almost home free, really. The only thing inside the zone aside from her would just be a few resources, and at the far southern end you'll find a security door to zone 395, and inside of there is your extraction scan. But before you can open up that security door, you do have to deal with a blood door. This blood door though is a bit of a tricky one because it's not your typical blood door. This one will spawn in almost 50 strikers and shooters, which is a fair amount more than a regular blood door. But you have a mine deployer with you, which means you can make pretty easy work of it. Place 1 mine on the left side of the door, 1 mine on the right side, and then maybe even 1 on the pillar facing directly towards the door, and then just do the full team scan tied to it, open up the door, and as you open it, run away so the mines don't blow you up, and then mines will deal with most of the enemies. You just have to shoot and kill the rest of them, which if you have C-foam or sentries, you can utilize those as well just to ensure you don't die. And once all the enemies from the blood door are dead, you can just walk right on in. Inside Zone 395 at the back end of it, you'll find your extraction scan, and this is a silent one, so no alarm or anything is going to initiate upon stepping into it. So as soon as you get there, just hop into the scan as a team, wait for the scan to hit 100%, and once it does, you have beaten alternate R3D1. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R3D1 may not be the most challenging finale level we've received from a rundown, but I still find it to be a very enjoyable level. The first half being fast-paced due to the error alarm and the alarm doors, the birther fight at the midway point, the now super intense stealth portion with all the charger variants and the hybrids, and the finale with the introduction to the Queen Birther and a curveball blood door right afterwards makes this all one of my favorite Rundown 3 levels to play. I do feel like there are a bit too many resources in this newer version. They probably could have toned it down a little bit, but I may have the unpopular opinion with that one. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that I was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you want to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast. Before we end off this guide, I just want to say thank you everyone for watching through this journey of Alternate Rundown 3. I do have some more videos planned before Alternate Rundown 4 releases, but in all honesty, I don't know how often I'm going to be getting them out. The whole 2 videos a week schedule is definitely going to have to go until Alternate Rundown 4 returns, just because with how much time and effort I'm going to have to put into some of these videos like lore or guides or some other cool things I have planned, I don't think I'm going to be able to reasonably get 2 videos out per week. So yeah, upload schedule is going to be slowing down a little bit. It might be a little bit inconsistent here and there as well, but I'm going to try to get content out as often as I possibly can before Alternate Rundown 4, in which case I will try to go back to the 2 videos every single week. That way we could get through all those Rundown 4 level completions and level guides before Alternate Rundown 5 makes its appearance. But until next time, congratulations to all of you who have fully completed Alternate Rundown 3, and good luck to those of you who are still going for it, and hopefully I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video. Whenever that might be.